Good afternoon, I'm Tom Drost, President at Estimate Rocket. Welcome to our Estimate Rocket walkthrough sponsored by our partners and friends at HMI Company. Today I'll do a full walkthrough of Estimate Rocket. So we'll be covering things that will be relevant both to people who have used Estimate Rocket and haven't. For those of you who have logged into Estimate Rocket, this is the dashboard screen, and it has your list of things that you're going to do for the day, both appointments, places you need to go out or attend, and also things, just tasks that you need to do. So because it's Estimate Rocket, 9 times out of 10, the first thing we do is to add a new estimate. So I'm going to jump in and get started right with adding a new estimate. And that's the plus estimate button. So when we add an estimate, we can either use an existing client just by searching for it, type in a client name or part of the client name, or we can enter in a new client if we want. So if we want to enter a new client, we can put in their name, email address, phone number, company name, all that information that we need to describe the customer. Pretty standard fare for any CRM or estimating type package. So I'm going to go ahead and add an existing client just because that'll make things go by a little quicker. You won't have to watch me type. Project name's very handy. We use the project name all the time to indicate a little bit more detailed information about the project. In the case of a commercial job, for example, where the work location might be different than the billing address, we can use it to describe the project. So we'll call this one the East End project. And in many cases, this will be the billing address. And in many cases, though, the work location may be a different address than the billing address. So in this case, the work location might be a little closer to home. It happens to be our office. So we'll go ahead and put in the address. And then we have an option for customer notes, which you can use to describe the job or give some additional information about the job. That will appear on the documents that Estimate Rocket creates. So again, optional to use it or not here. I'm going to actually skip that one, and I'm going to use the internal notes. The internal notes are great because those never show up anywhere on the customer-facing documents. So we can use this for all kinds of things, including if we are a little frustrated with the customer and have to say something that they might not want to hear. We can always use this area for that type of information. But the best thing you can do with internal notes, and probably one of the great features of Estimate Rocket, is you can use it for search tags or hashtags. So for example, I might use it to identify that it's a residential job. And I might also use it to define that it's an interior job or an exterior job if I was a painter. Or if I'm in mudjacking, it might be a poly job or a mud job. It can also be used very nicely to further categorize any of your work and to identify different statuses or states of your project. So sometimes we're waiting for materials, sometimes we're waiting for a permit, we're waiting for approval from some other source. That's a great thing to use search tags for because we can get to them easily. I'm going to say waiting for approval. And I'll show you in a little bit where we can get to those really quickly and easily and use those to our advantage to keep track of our projects. The next thing that's really important is the lead source. So everybody's doing advertising of one sort or another. The lead source gives us the ability to track where these leads and jobs are coming from, whether it's an individual referring us work or whether it's one of the advertising sources that we're using. And of course, you can modify these to your heart's content. In fact, you can even just key them in on the fly if you want. I'm just going to pick Angie's list. And then, of course, we can assign the project to someone. I'm just going to leave it assigned to me for the moment. And we've started our project. Now, it's one of the things that Estimate Rocket does require you to do is put in a fair amount of information about the customer up front. One of the reasons we really think that that's important is because identifying that information up front makes sure that you can contact the customer, make sure you have what you need to carry out this project. So sometimes that may be a little tedious to get up front, but always a big benefit to having it and not having to scramble around for it later when you're actually trying to contact the customer for something. Another thing we can do here in the project once we've started it is we can add additional contacts if we need to with the plus contacts button. So if I want to, I can add in another person. Maybe he's the project manager and his email. guess that's my email again. And a phone number if needed. And any notes that we might want to capture about Joe. So that just gives us the ability to keep as many additional contacts as we need. So we've got the client information in there, and we're about to see our first example of winning more jobs and closing more sales. And that is that we're going to schedule our appointment right on the fly. We're going to schedule that in to go on Monday to do the estimate. We're going to leave some notes. Bring your flashlight. And we're going to assign it a time so we know when we want to be there. 10 a.m. End time is optional. And we scheduled it. But not only have we scheduled it, but because of Estimate Rocket's automated follow-ups, we've also already automatically sent a notification to the client. And that's probably one of the most powerful features of Estimate Rocket is automated follow-ups. At each stage of the project, you can identify one or more emails to go out both to the client and to internal people in your company based on every step of the project. So in this case, we just got an email sent out. Oh, my picture on the email, look at that. To notify the client, just to remind them of the appointment. So it's going to be Monday, May 30th, and who you're going to be meeting with, and then a nice closing. And all of the emails are controlled by templates that, of course, you can adjust. So we just did step one. We made an appointment with the customer, and we immediately notified them. There's no reason not to follow up automatically and instantly with your clients, and guarantee that will help your whole process. So once we've put in the schedule for the appointment, we can always go and see our appointments on our calendar. We can look at both our schedule and other people's schedules, depending upon how many people you have in your company. And that will also appear on our dashboard. So if I go look on my dashboard and I go to future appointments, I should see that appointment coming up for Monday, May 30th, reminding me to bring my flashlight. It's also really easy in Estimate Rocket to search for things. So if I want, for example, I can search for my project that I'm waiting for, which will come up because I use the waiting for approval search tag. So again, search tags are really handy from one of your best friends. And when we look at reporting in a few minutes, you'll see how those can be really effective. So we get out, now it's time to get out to the customer. Let's flash forward to next Monday. And we're going to go ahead and drill into the estimate so we can complete it. So everybody on the line is probably going to do their estimates a little bit differently. One of the beauties of Estimate Rocket is it's very flexible. So what we do to build an estimate basically is add line items. So the first thing I do is click Line Item Plus, and I see a whole bunch of selections here. So when I go to add a line item, I can add a basic line item by choosing line item. And these line items are things that you can predefine or you can create on the fly. So if I want, I can just build a new line item with a new description, or I can go and select from one of my existing line items. So I can predefine line items with all kinds of different information in them and use those rather than having to build a new line item from scratch every time. I also have, in addition to regular line items, we have industry templates. So in this case, I have insulation, we have interior and exterior painting, we have concrete for concrete lifting, and courtesy of HMI. And we're gonna actually start there. Let's assume we're on a concrete job, and we're gonna do a concrete section. And once we click that, it's gonna set us up to do some very specific things for concrete lifting. First, we start out with what area we're describing. I want the length and the width. Let's say it's a 20-foot walk, 4 feet wide, and we have to lift 2 sides for 6 inches. And Estimate Rocket automatically calculates out the options based on the prices and the production rates you've put in to give us the amount of material that we need and the total dollars, which of course we can override here if we want to. And it'll even do some notes for us if we wanted to automatically put in notes. So we'll raise one piece on one side. And we've got our estimate with 2 options, a mud option and a poly option. Additionally, with Estimate Rocket, we can add photos. So we can go ahead, and if we were on a mobile device, it would be coming up and asking us if we wanted to take a photo or load one from our camera roll. If we're on a desktop, it's going to pull up and give me my file list. And then I can select the file from my list and type in a little caption. And I always get the option to either include or not include the photo in the project. So sometimes you just want to take a photo that's evidentiary so that, maybe later on when you send the guys out to do the work, you may want to take a picture of something that you want them to be aware of. So, to avoid breakage or damages of them doing something where they shouldn't have done. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one and include it. And once I've added my photo, the other thing we can do is add files to our projects. So we can add as many different files. Maybe you have some plans, maybe you have permits, maybe you have something that was scanned from your client. You can add those to your project as well. And of course, those can be sent as attachments with your estimates anytime you want. So we can always add as many files as we want as well. So once we've gotten our line items and we've got our photos, we are ready to take a look at what our estimate looks like. So we've got our mud option and our poly option, and we've got our contract, and of course the contract and terms are all defined as you would want them defined, and we've got our estimate. There we go. So next step is to send out that estimate. So again, communicating with your customer, being able to send this thing from the field, or you're sitting in your car 5 minutes after you've seen the customer and be able to pull it up, pull up your template for your customer. You can have unlimited different types of email templates. So depending upon what kind of job it is, you may have slightly different wording for each of the different jobs, totally flexible. And of course, all customizable by you to have whatever verbiage you want to have in your estimate emails. And you can even decide to send emails later, so you can schedule any emails in Estimate Rocket to go out at a future date if you want to. So if you want an email to go out 2 days from now or 3 days from now, you can schedule it here. Even if you're doing it in the middle of the night and you want it to go out and be at the top of your customer's inbox in the morning, you can still use this send later, so it gets there when you want it to get there and not just at the time you happen to be sending it. So I'm going to go ahead and send out that estimate. Right. So once we've sent the estimate, the next thing we want to do is to mark the estimate as complete. We've done it. We sent it out to the customer. It's complete. Now we need to get it accepted. So we're going to go ahead and mark it as complete. We get a dialog at every step of the way in Estimate Rocket, which does a couple things. Lets us assign when we want to look at this thing next. So the next step is to follow up on the work acceptance. And we can also specify who did it. So sometimes the office manager will be marking things as complete or advancing the project. And this gives them the opportunity to reassign the credit for this estimate to a different person. So I might give the credit for this to Steve, even though I'm the one who's actually marking it as complete. And that really comes into play when you're doing reporting after the fact, so we can tell exactly who gets credit for what. Many of our customers use the reporting that comes out of Estimate Rocket to give commissions to their employees, both their sales guys and crew leaders. Now, the next question is, who's going to follow up on this? That's going to be me. And when should it be completed? In this particular case, when should it be completed is really just a reminder date. It's saying, hey, when do you want to see this? When do you want this to be in your face again on your dashboard? And because of the automated follow-ups, I'm not going to actually look at this for 2 weeks, because the automated follow-ups are going to kick in for me. And then I can always leave some additional notes here if I want to. And the notes become a great history with the project, so you always know all the details that went on in the project. So we give them some notes for this step, and we mark it as done. So now what happens once we've accepted that work, once again, follow-ups are king. So we've gone ahead and sent it, marked it as complete, and Estimate Rocket has queued up a set of emails. So again, I've got 5 emails that are staggered out from now all the way till next year. So there's really no limitation on how far out you can schedule these emails to be sent. The way it defaults in Estimate Rocket is it sends them out fairly close together. So this is 2 days, 8 days, 15 days, and 30 days, and then 320 days. But you can do it in whatever time frames that you want. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit, where you set up those follow-up campaigns and how you do it. But each campaign email can have slightly different text, so the customers really do feel like they're being personally addressed, even though you're just setting it and forgetting it and not having to worry about it. You can take a look, come in here and look at all the different emails. And you'll notice that the different designations on the emails, these are saying scheduled. We have the email, the appointment confirmation email that went out earlier is showing that it was delivered now. So we can always tell the status of the email. And if you end up with a bad email address at some point, you may see a failed message, which is a good indicator, that you've got a problem. Actually, in the case of failed emails, we actually email the sender directly and let them know that it's failed, so you can take action immediately. So there's a lot of fallbacks here. So power of automated follow-ups. We've just sent out the estimate to the customer. These emails are going to go out automatically to the customer. Many of our customers have some of the follow-up emails go to themselves with a message that says something to the effect of, hey, it's time to call this person. You haven't heard back from them in 2 weeks. So you can use the email follow-up campaigns very creatively to get whatever outcome you want from them. Very powerful capability. And let's face it, 9 times out of 10, the person that we go with or the company that we go with is the one that pays the most attention to us. And these automated follow-ups are really a great way of paying attention, even if the follow-ups go to you and tell you to call the customer. So can't overemphasize the concept of following up. So we've now sent it out. We're waiting for acceptance. We can always go anytime and see where our projects stand by looking on the project screen. Pendings are our projects that we've completed the estimate on, but the customer hasn't accepted yet. If we go look at estimates, we can see that estimates fall into 2 categories. We have estimates that need to be scheduled or are pending schedule, and we have estimates that are pending completion. So that just gives us a good breakdown, and we can drill into the pending schedule estimates if we want. And once we get to the pending schedule estimates, then we can decide if there's any of these that we want to get scheduled or figure out why we haven't scheduled them yet, so we can make sure we're following up with our business. Again, Estimate Rocket's goal is to keep you following up with your customers, keep you on top of your business so that you're really up on what you need to be doing in order to close more deals. And that's really, at the end of the day, what it's all about, closing more of the right deals. In addition to our estimate status, we've also got pendings, as I mentioned, and then we have work orders. And work orders fall into 2 groups, much like the estimates do, the pending schedule and pending completion. Obviously, if the customer's accepted, we probably want to try to get those scheduled as soon as possible. Invoices fall into 2 categories as well. There are invoices that are pending sent. So once the invoice is complete, we want to make sure and get the invoice out to the customer once the work is complete. And then we also have the pending payment, which means we sent the invoice and marked it as sent, but we're waiting for the customer to pay off the invoice in full. And Estimate Rocket's follow-up campaigns can help you at every single step of the process. So it's there to help you. All right. So at this point, we're hoping that this customer is actually going to accept our project. So let's assume for a moment that they do, and we go back and we look up the project. And once we look it up, we go into the project and we're ready to accept the work. So in this particular case, with a concrete lifting estimate, we're going to have to choose which option. The customer is going to decide on one of these 2 options. So in this case, we're going to assume they're going with the poly option. So we're actually going to exclude the mud option from the document. And that way, the customer is only going to end up paying for the poly option, which is what they selected. Now we could delete the mud option if we want, but excluding it is a nice tool because it lets you keep around the original thing that you've estimated or sent to the customer, but it won't show up on any further documents. So once we exclude that, we can go ahead and click Accept Work, and then it's going to ask us some more questions. The main question here is, when did you accept the work? What was the date you got the job? And then who's going to schedule the work? So again, if you've got multiple employees, who's going to schedule the work might be a completely different individual. And when should it be completed? Well, hopefully we're going to schedule it pretty soon. But if you know you're on a certain delay, you could push this reminder date out a little bit so it doesn't show up in your dashboard immediately as late. So we're going to go ahead and leave it set as today because we're going to actually schedule it in a moment. All right, now we've accepted it. You'll notice that the project has a total. If we did accept a payment from the customer at this point, we could simply click on the plus payments button. And let's say they gave us a deposit of $125. Put in their check number. It's a deposit. And Estimate Rocket will keep track of the payments and the remaining balance so that later when we send out an invoice, it'll just be for the total of the remaining balance. And now we're ready to actually go schedule the job. So there's a couple ways we can do our scheduling. One way is to just from the project click on the schedule work button. The other way is we can go to the schedule screen, and from the schedule screen there's a couple of other options we have. First of all, we can search, and that'll show us all of our work orders that need to be scheduled. And then there's some other searches in here that we could do, like we could search for things in a certain town or a certain zip code if we wanted to try to schedule multiple jobs, based on proximity. So if not, we can just go ahead and pick the job that we want to schedule and drop it into the schedule. So I can drop that one in here. I don't think that was actually the job I was working on. I think it was Mr. Edwards that we were scheduling. And we can drop him in, and we can also pick who's going to actually do the job and assign it to a different person if we need to. And again, opportunity there for notes if we want to give them some special instructions that they might need to know when they get out to actually do the job. So now that we've assigned that, we can go back and go to the dashboard. And what's going to happen is that's going to show up on Steve's dashboard in the future. So when Tuesday rolls around, this is going to show up as his main activity for the day. He can go quickly take a look at where it needs to be scheduled. And if any of you are from Canada, we did just recently add Canadian mapping to the application. We didn't previously have Canadian mapping, but we do now. So our Canadian friends will be happy about that. And you can also use the directions button to jump out and get Google directions. And that'll show us exactly where we need to go on the map. So, all right. And one other thing I might not have mentioned on the schedule screen is you can also subscribe to the calendar. So if you want on your mobile device, you can subscribe to, on your Apple devices, you can subscribe to the calendars. And if you have an Android, you can subscribe. You can subscribe to the calendar in your Google Calendar, and then that will link it into your Android devices as well. So you can see that on any of your devices. All right. So the other thing that I didn't do in terms of automated campaigns, I may not have mentioned that campaigns can actually work in two ways. You can have automated campaigns and manual campaigns. And when you first get Estimate Rocket, all of the campaigns are actually set to manual. And the reason we do that is mainly so that emails aren't flying around that you're not really aware of. So when the campaign is set up to manual, you basically need to use the Start Campaign button to actually initiate it. So in this case, we have a campaign for when the work is scheduled, very similar to the campaign that we had when the estimate was scheduled. So if I click Start Campaign on that, which I should have done when I accepted the work, it's going to come down here and set up an appointment confirmation email to go out. It says when it's going to be and who you'll be meeting with. So again, good communications with the customer. The other thing that you'll notice is that the 5 emails that were queued up to go out when we were waiting for the project to be accepted are now gone. So Estimate Rocket, when you advance the project, it automatically clears out any remaining emails, so you don't have to worry about the customer getting information, pinged on accepting the project after they've already accepted. Estimate Rocket automatically cleans up after itself and takes care of that. It's one of the big advantages over Estimate Rocket versus using like a more generic email application like MailChimp to do this type of transactional emailing. So we have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of your project and can make the communications a little more precise. So we've got our email that just went out to notify them that work's going to be done. At this point, the crew would go out and actually go out to do the job. One of the things that you can do in Estimate Rocket, there's a work order document. And one of the nice things about the work order document is it can be set up so that it doesn't show any prices. So your field crew won't necessarily see any prices if you want it to be set up that way. You can optionally show quantity. So if there's a material quantity that they need to be aware of, you can have the quantities print on the work order. So that'll give them, all the key information that they need for that. So in this case, this is basically a image picture of what the work order looks like. And one other kind of neat thing on the line items that you can do, which is really good for the field crew, is there's two descriptive fields. There's both the description and then there's the notes. The notes field, very similar to the internal notes, only appears on the internal documents like the work order. So you can use the notes basically for work instruction, things that you didn't want on your estimate presentation to the customer, but that you really want to capture and be able to convey to the work crew. Things, maybe site information or something to watch out for when they're actually doing the job, or just simply instructions on how to perform a particular operation. And these, of course, can be put into your line items as well. So those can be permanent instructions that are available to you with any line item or any project. All right. So, and as I mentioned, you can email the work order. We also have a login mode for your employees called contractor mode or field crew mode. And if you specify an employee to be in field crew mode, even when they're logged into the application, they will not see prices anywhere. They will only see quantity if you've asked them to see quantity and the description of the work. So again, we're capable of having you allow all of your employees to get into the application, but not necessarily see any information you don't want them to. Now, I'm not used to talking without anyone giving me feedback, so this is a unique experience for me today. So at this point, the other thing that most of our customers do is when their field crews go out to do the job, they have them take additional photos so you can have before and after photos. And again, that can be for both purposes of marketing and presenting to the customer, and it can also be for the purposes of evidence, so that if you're concerned that a customer might come back and say that you damaged something or there was a problem with something, it makes it very handy to have a photo that you can show the customer that identifies that this condition existed before you even started the project. So again, those are great photos to actually take when you're doing the estimate, so you've got them captured for when the project is over. Highly recommended. But again, you can take as many photos as you want. So we'll just we'll add one more photo to the project here. Cool. Our after picture. And so when the guys are done in the field, if you have the guys logging in, then the field crews, then they can actually come in and mark the job as complete. So when they're done with the work, they would click work complete. They can redirect it back to the office manager or whoever takes care of the invoicing process. And another place here to capture notes. A lot of our customers will use the notes when the work is complete to identify what the quantities of materials that were actually used and how many hours they worked on the job. So we used 400 pounds and we thought we were only going to use 111. We're in big trouble on this project. But again, the notes are a great thing to have your employees use. It really helps the project document itself. So down at the bottom of the project, you can see here that the 3 notes that we've collected so far are listed down here. Some customers have much longer notes than mine, but again, it makes it really easy to keep track of what happened on the project and have a good history and good evidence of the whole progress and progression of the project. So once we have completed, marked the work as complete, we're ready to do an invoice. So I can go ahead and pull up the invoice document. It shows me who it's going to go to, and I can again send it now or later. And I can also change who the estimate or the invoice is going to go to. And then I want to make sure and mark it as sent. So once the invoice is sent, by marking it as sent, once again, we're going to get an option for notes, but we're also going to get an option for an email campaign. And this might be one of the most important email campaigns there is, which is the Dunning campaign to make sure we get paid for our work. So this one queues up a series of emails. I think the default in Estimate Rocket is 5 emails that go out over a series of, from 7 to I think 45 days or 90 days. And of course, each one getting a little bit more, a little sterner in terms of the message to make sure that we actually get paid. So once again, we followed up when we scheduled our appointment. We followed up after we sent the estimate to make sure that the customer got it and to keep following up until they accepted. We followed up with an appointment when we scheduled the work. We followed up now after we've invoiced them. We followed up to make sure that they are going to pay the invoice, and we'll keep following up until it's done. In this case, so not only we're going to close more sales by using Estimate Rocket and the automated follow-ups, but we're also going to collect our money a little faster, I hope. So once the customer does pay, we can just add in the payment, and it defaults to the balance due. And put in a check number if that's what they paid with. And now we're at the point, once we get the project balance to $0 due, this is the point where we can mark the project as complete. So I'm going to go ahead and click the complete project button and say OK. And once it's complete, we get one more campaign option. And this, I think, is probably the most powerful campaign of all. The campaign when the project is complete. So you can set up a campaign that maybe goes out in 30 days and thanks the customer for their business, asks for referrals. You can set up one that goes out in 90 days, make sure everything's still looking good, and ask for referrals. And send one out a year after that if you want, or 2 years after that if you want. Again, just gives you the opportunity to stay in front of your customers and remind them of how much you appreciate their business. And that that whole series of follow-ups is just so key to completing the sales process. And Estimate Rocket makes it easy. If you're not following up with Estimate Rocket, there's just no excuse, because we make it too easy. So follow-ups are really key. Not only to Estimate Rocket, but obviously to your businesses. We all know the ones that we lose are the ones we don't keep track of. So that gives us a good overview kind of the flow of a project from, setting up the initial estimate when you get the lead and following it all the way through the sales process to completion. Some of the other things just to take a quick look at in Estimate Rocket, one of them is reporting. So Estimate Rocket keeps track of a wide variety of information that it tracks throughout the course of the project, and it's based on a few of the key dates that happen during the course of a project. First of all, when we get to the report screen, we have a series of summary reports, and those reports are based on the settings. So in this case, I've got a month view, so it's showing me the current month of May of 2016. If I want to look at a different month, I can simply scroll to a previous month, and it's going to bring me back to April or March or whatever month I want to look at. I can also change the view to a day, week, month, or year. So if I look at a year, now I'm looking at all of 2016. So a little bit bigger scope of a report. In terms of what we can see in our report, probably one of the most important reports is the sales by source. If you're doing any sort of advertising at all, sales by source is key. These sales by source represent who you sold and what the lead source was that you captured. So in this case, we had 31 projects sold that came from Angie's List. We had 5 projects that came with no lead source at all entered. 3 that were referrals. Now, the nice thing here is that at any of these numbers that we see, we can drill into the details. So by clicking on the dollar amount, I can quickly see these are my 32 Angie's List projects. My 32 Angie's List invoices. And on any of these projects, we can drill into those as well and actually see the details of the project, see what actually happened on that project. So it makes it very easy to go back through the history and be able to, look up past work. And then I mentioned the search tags. So right now we're looking at $244,000 and 32 results. If I put in search tag interior, then it narrows it down to the 17 projects that represented interior work. And I could further, differentiate between residential and commercial if I wanted to. Although I think in this case, they're probably all residential jobs. Yep. And I could say, which ones did we never finish the color selections on? I got 3 that we never finished the color selections on. So I've got all kinds of options there. So sales, we drilled in there. Let's go back. So in addition to sales by source, we also have sales by estimator. So if you have multiple estimators on your team or sales guys on your team, you can track, what their performances are. And we have new projects by source as well. So new projects is really the counterpart to sales by source. So sales by source are the ones we invoiced. New projects by source are how many we got. So in this case, we added 39 new projects from Angie's List, and we only closed 31 within the time frame of 2016. So it gives us a good basis for comparison to see, hey, what's our closing ratio based on a particular lead source? Again, very, very powerful information to have when you're deciding where you're going to spend your advertising dollars. And then new projects by owner. It looks like I was a busy guy last year and did all of the job. All the new projects were done by me. So, and again, we can just drill in on any of the numbers that we want to drill in on and look at the details. And then as we move across, we've got 3 more sections of reports. We have completed work orders, we have completed estimates, and we have accepted estimates. So completed work orders, the work is done. It may not have been invoiced yet, but it's been marked as complete. So a lot of our customers use this to reward or bonus their field crews. So crew leader will mark the job as closed and then gets credit for that project. Completed estimates and accepted estimates. Again, some people bonus their salespeople on how many estimates they complete. Some bonus them based on how many are actually accepted during a period. Always, different variations on how people do sales commissions. And then our final set of columns are our 3 open reports. We've got a list of open invoices aged by 30/60 and hopefully not greater than 90, but they are in my demo. And we've got open work orders. So open work orders are projects that have been accepted, but the work has not been completed. And open estimates are estimates that have been completed, but have not been accepted. So that's kind of your breakouts. Obviously, open estimates would be a good place for your sales guys to look to track down any open estimates that might be closable. And open work orders, obviously, whoever your operations leader is should be definitely concerned of too many open work orders that are greater than 90 days. So pretty much a wealth of information here in Estimate Rocket. There's also several other report formats. There's a sales report. The sales report is basically the same report that you get when you're doing any of the other, when you drill in on any of the sales numbers. That's the sales report. The receipts report is cash receipts. So all cash payments basically come into the receipts report. So these reports can be used to feed, if you're not using QuickBooks, these reports can be used to feed whatever existing accounting system you have. And we do have plans for adding QuickBooks Online in the not too distant future. Currently we do QuickBooks Desktop. And then finally there's a sales tax report. So if you are in a sales taxable situation. We do track sales tax both by tax rate and or by tax authority, which really varies by, obviously, the taxability. Sales tax varies by state. So we see a lot of different variations. People from Washington State really suffer. They have hundreds and hundreds of tax authorities. It's no fun at all. And we have, finally, we have, these are the counterparts to the other reports that we were looking at, like the open reports. And then we also have project estimate, accepted, and work order reports as well. So again, just different variations on the different project states. So that is pretty much Estimate Rocket in a nutshell. Just a quick glance through the settings. We've talked a little bit about settings today, things like setting up your employees. So setting up your employees is where you can go in and identify whether they're a regular login employee or you want them to have the restricted crew leader or contractor permissions. And then you have general permissions where you can exclude people from accessing reports and certain of the management functions, being able to delete things and manipulate things within the system, and then which responsibilities they apply to them. Not everybody's an estimator, so not everybody's going to schedule or complete estimates, and you can manage those responsibilities as well. And then item list is where you create your list of items for resale, depending upon what type of business you have. And we've got in this case, we've got quite a wide variety of different kind of line items. And one of the neat things about line items is line items can really be, very expressive. So we support a thing called markdown formatting in the line items. And this particular formatting that you're looking at here will basically give you a bulleted list of these items. So the line items can be used for pure descriptive information for your proposals, which, makes a very nice appearance on your proposal. And then email templates, which we talked a little bit about before. Email templates is, again, probably one of the best things in the application, and highly encourage you to customize these to have, the feel of your company. And you can have as many different email templates as you want. So you can create different ones for different purposes and make sure that, you're communicating the way you want to your customers with your own personality. And then beyond email templates, one other thing I might not have mentioned is you can, in addition to adding files to a project, you can also add files to an email template. So if you have certain things that you always want to send out with your estimates, for example, maybe you've got an About Us or referral sheet or reference sheets or something, or testimonials, or even insurance paperwork that you might want to send out after the project has been accepted. You can set up a template for those things and attach those files to them. Makes it very easy to send that information out to your customers. And of course, those can be attached to your regular campaign emails as well. And then I mentioned follow-up campaigns. Biggest thing in Estimate Rocket, or one of the big things in Estimate Rocket. Follow-up campaigns is where you can build the campaigns. You can set up a campaign for each of the steps in the project. And so, for example, the most popular one is the pending acceptance campaign. Starts when the customer needs to accept the project or accept the work. And here you can see we've got it set up with, we've got 5 emails queued up, and they start after 2 days, 7 days, 14, 28, and 320 days. And I mentioned earlier setting it up as automatic versus manual. This is where you would make that setting switch from manual to automatic. So these are where all the controls happen. And of course, you can add additional or delete any campaign emails that you don't want. The other nice thing is on this campaign screen, you can actually see what campaigns are set up. So in this case, I can see I've got 6 active projects with the complete campaign. So if I click on that, it actually will show me those projects. And then I could drill into them and I could delete those emails if I didn't want, or stop the campaign if I wanted. so I can prevent the final emails from going out on that. Looks like I've got all but one that are gone. My one that I get next year. You can only imagine how many emails I get from Estimate Rocket on a regular basis. So that makes it really easy to kind of track down and see who's out there under which campaigns, which email campaigns. And then we've got a couple of general things. You've got company info. This is where you put in your company name, company email address, and general business address. You upload your logo, labor rate, and tax rate defaults go here as well. And then document templates. So we'll probably be doing a class on document templates at some time in the not too distant future. Document templates are where you can create all of the settings for the look of your documents. You can specify, how you want them to look. You can put in your terms and conditions. You can put in contract information if you want, and you can do some special formatting. So if there's things you don't like about how your estimate is appearing, we can help you with some coding, with some CSS, which is basically web programming, which is how our documents are created, that will completely change or somewhat change the look of your document to be more the way you would like it to be styled. And then each one of the document types has its own settings. So we can go through each of the different document types to set them up to look exactly the way you want. For example, on the work order document, this is where we can hide the pricing. So this is where we have the commands to hide the line item unit prices and the line item totals and document totals. So again, this is the place you go for all your customization on your documents, and we certainly are happy to help and do help most of our customers with some style of the formatting or other. And tax authorities, hopefully you won't have to deal with tax authorities, but that's where you set up tax authorities. If you have multiple taxing bodies that you have to keep track of, most people, fortunately, that do need to deal with taxes, fortunately only have one tax rate or maybe one or two tax rates to deal with. And then finally, the add-ons. So if you have the concrete raising template, for example, or the painting templates, the add-on screen is where you can set all of the default settings for these things. So concrete, we can set our rates and our conversion factors. Painting has pretty detailed settings where you can set up your labor rate and your coverage rates. You can set up the different paint options that you want to have. And this is works for both exterior, and then there's another setting section for interior. You can also define what we call the miscellaneous items. So when you're doing an exterior job, you may have power washing, sanding and scraping, caulking, repair work, siding, fascia, gutters, doors, windows, obviously, trim molding. And each of these can be set up with a different unit and production factor and paint utilization. So you really get very fine detail over how you can set these up. We do set you up with some initial defaults, but if you're a painter, we highly encourage you to take an existing estimate from whatever estimating system you're using and make sure that you come out with something that's meaningful from Estimate Rocket before you send your first one out to the customer. So it's a good practice. Anybody have any questions? I'm gonna kind of wrap up and I'll hang out for a little bit, but I'd just like to thank the folks over at HMI for co-sponsoring this session today. Great partners and friends, and I'd like to thank everybody who attended today. And as I said, we look forward, if we haven't already seen you sign up, we look forward to it, and if not, we always look forward to hearing from you. So, there, see, I got my reply back already. Great service. So, great. Thank you very much. And again, feel free to call us and check in on us anytime.